If you file for bankruptcy and you don't disclose an asset in your bankruptcy, one of the natural things in the United States is they take your passport. You can't travel out of the country.
My message to those who are outside of the country thinking, yes, I agree. The chances of you getting hit or having problems are less, fine. I get that, right? But it's still going to be very annoying. It's still going to be very distracting. It's still going to cost you a lot of money. It still has a lot of risk layers there. You're better off just doing it right, doing it compliantly.
Section 5 of the FTC Act gives it two ways. So there's two ways they have jurisdiction. It's either if a company outside the country is advertising to U.S. clients, or a U.S. client is soliciting to out of countries.
Welcome back to Don't Say That. And today we're going to talk about all of you who don't live in the United States who think you're hunky-dory and perfectly fine and nothing's going to happen to you with the FTC. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. I don't know. We're going to find out today. We've got our very own compliance master himself, the attorney, the guy you call when someone's bothering you. Greg Christiansen, welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for being here, Greg. Listen, guys, we have added a digital copy of the book to the sales page now. So that's right. You can get it. Go to don'tsaythat.com or don'tsaythat.com/go. The book is doing amazing. Thank you guys for all the support. We're so glad that this compliance revolution is being accepted and we're getting marketers to turn towards ethical and moral marketing. That's not just good for you. It's good for your customers, and it lets you sleep better at night so you don't have to pay $2.5 million like I did. That's my kind of life mission now. So today we're announcing that we've added the digital copy, and we've done this on purpose for all of you that are international that should be getting this book that haven't, because you don't want to pay $19.97 shipping and handling. I get you. Don't get mad at me, guys. It cost us. We're not making any money on that. It costs us an arm and a leg to ship things out. So digital copies there. That problem is solved. But now we have to ask the question. So Greg, do companies outside of the United States get sued by the FTC, and do affiliates and businesses that are doing marketing and advertising outside the U.S., so they're non-U.S. citizens, they're not U.S. citizens, and they're non-U.S. based companies, do they still have to worry about the FTC? Go.
Yeah. Section 5 of the FTC Act.
That's the end of the podcast.
Yes. No, but I'm going to get into this because I get this all the time. They're like, well, I'm in Singapore, or I'm in, Malaysia or whatever, but India, and I market into the United States, but am I governed by those laws? And the same thing I would say is if we decided to run a campaign in Australia, that we would have to abide by the AAA, which is their FTC down there, their rules and regulations if we're marketing into there. And interesting enough, we had an in-depth conversation about different marketing practices yesterday for a different client, because they're in the EU and the UK, they're in South America. So there's a lot of different laws that pertain to that. But Section 5 of the FTC Act has a provision that extends its authority to matters involving companies that are doing business into the United States. If it affects U.S. citizens, the long-arm statute of the law, that's what allows them or grants them authority to go after things, will allow them to go ahead and prosecute companies that are doing business outside of the country, but are located principally outside the country, but doing business here in the United States. So there definitely is a long-arm reach for that. They're not going to just let you do it and then be like, oh, you're in Dubai. Okay, that's fine.
So basically the surefire way to not have the FTC governance is to be non-U.S. citizen, non-U.S. based, and not selling to U.S. citizens. So if you just exclude U.S. from your marketing, don't let the U.S. citizens buy, then technically the FTC could have no authority over you. Is that the only way, basically?
That's it. I mean,
okay.
If you look in 2015 and 2020, the FTC brought actions against international companies that were doing business in the United States. And the arguments of those companies were that they were protected by what they call safe harbor legislation, which is I am out of the country and you can't come after me. But the FTC was able in 2015 was able to get 13 companies that they settled with them because they had violated the law. And then in 2020, there was additional 4 companies that they were foreign companies that had violated provisions of the FTC Act, and they had settlements with those companies as well. And it happens all the
So
time. I mean, look at the
yeah,
Mo. I mean,
yeah. I was just gonna say I know of a few. I have a question though. What about affiliates? What about an affiliate marketer that's outside of the United States promoting an American or non-American company? They're smaller fish, and this is what I usually hear. I'm just a small guy. Could they and would they still be liable potentially for rules?
yeah, they are. I mean, if they touch the marketing practices. So say if I have an affiliate that's in the EU, but they're sending ads here in the United States, and that's part of my campaign funnel. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that the 13 cases that they settled, a lot of those weren't the main marketing companies. They were affiliates or advertising companies.
Wow.
The
Okay.
advertising networks got in trouble with it as well. The 2020 cases, it was related to 4 companies that were basically making similar violations, but 2 of them were advertising networks or affiliates. So it wasn't just the main company that was advertising, it was others too. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're part of the chain, whether you're an affiliate, an advertising network, an agency, and you're part of that and you're out of the country thinking, well, I'm protected. No, most safe harbor acts don't protect you. And it's here's the issue. If there are treaties and there are back and forth agreements between those countries, then you got to abide by the laws in the United States if there's a treaty with them. Now, you know my joke on this, right? Where am I moving? We're going to Ireland, my friend, because Ireland doesn't have extradition in the United States. So, and there are other countries too, but if I'm going to pick to go to live with someplace, it's going to be Ireland, and not I don't know El Salvador or other countries that don't have extradition. So, I mean, and the misnomer was like the Swiss bank accounts, right? But
What does
one,
that mean, by the way? What does it mean to not have extradition?
if I get arrested or if there's an action that's brought against me, I can't be compelled by that other country to go ahead and respond to that or have to come to the United States to account for so if you commit a crime, you go to Ireland, they can't bring you back extradition. So you'll notice like in the United States, for example, they'll try to do this all the time. They call it extradition when I go and I commit a crime in Utah, but I move to California. I get arrested in that. Well, my attorneys will fight for me to stay in California, not to be extradited into Utah to stand for criminal prosecution. If I'm successful, I stay in California, but if I'm not, I've got to go back. Well, if there's no treaty between the 2 countries that forces them to do that, then there's no way to compel me if I'm in that jurisdiction to come back to the United States.
Okay.
Uh,
So that in essence ends up meaning that let's say there is a Irish company, Irish affiliate, it would be very difficult for the FTC to go after that person because of the fact that there is no treaty in between the 2 countries.
they could get a judgment. They couldn't. I don't know how they enforce that judgment.
Okay, got it. So let's talk about how I'll pick. You mentioned India. I'll pick India because it's a big market, booming market for me at least. I know I sell a lot of product in India. So, and there's a lot of marketers rising out of India. So if the FTC decides we don't like this company in India, they're doing things, they're selling to Americans, they're breaking the rules, how does the FTC actually get to them? Does it have to go to the Indian government, get authorization, partner with the local government there, and then go after the person, or can it directly go for them? Like, what does the FTC do if they want to go after someone in another country?
Well, first thing they do is they follow the money, right? And so that's traditionally why they go under Section 19, especially if there's telemarketing cells or some sort of deceptive act that they try to allege under. What they'll do is because if I'm out of the country and I'm here in the United States, 99.9% of the time, I'm using some sort of banking system here to collect money in the United States. Now, I know there are some times, that they'll use crypto or some other things for compensation. For big marketing companies, they're doing merchant processing or they've got some sort of, Stripes accounts or whatever accounts they have to process payments. So the first thing the FTC is going to do is they're going to file an action probably where the merchant provider is, and they're going to go ahead and get an injunction to freeze all of the US-based assets. So if I'm in Dubai or India and I'm the market here in the United States better, and I'm merchanting, processing payments here in the United States, and the FTC gets wind that I'm violating things, the first thing they're going to do is file a suit here and ask for an asset freeze. And the court most likely will grant it because of the concern about taking money and leaving it. So one of the reasons that the FTC gets asset freezes is the argument that if we let them have the asset, they're going to dissipate it and we'll never see it. So we need to freeze it. Well, that argument is amplified when you've got an out-of-country defendant, because of course they're going to take the assets, and once it gets out of the country, how are you going to try to recollect that? So they go into the court, they get a temporary injunction, an asset freeze against the company. They go and they serve that on the banks in the United States and the merchant providers, and they freeze all those assets. And if you're doing 95% of your business in the United States and most of the money you have is in those accounts and you haven't transferred yet, you're part of that. You're either going to lose that money or you have to fight it, right? And if it's millions of dollars, most people are going to try to fight that. But as soon as that happens, they're like, no, it's here. Come and get it. We got it. Come get it. And so that's what companies will be like, yeah, I want to do that.
So that's the money. What about the actual person? But let's say they pulled all the money out. There isn't much left in this account in the U.S. The FTC is not satisfied with that. They want the actual person. They want a bigger fine. How can they cross borders?
So what they'll do is they will go and get a judgment against the company and the individual, right? And again, if they have extradition laws, if they have some sort of treaty with that country, because the United States, I mean, come on, they'll go to France or they'll go to Dubai or India and be like, you want to come to us when somebody is in the United States scamming your clients and you don't help us to enforce judgment against your citizens? That's a problem. And so most countries are willing to help enforce those judgments. So you take that judgment in the United States, you register it in India or whatever country they're at, and then they press the government there to help enforce that, and they go and foreclose on assets there in the other country.
Wow.
Now,
okay.
That's harder to do. I'm not saying that's not like that's easy. It's harder to do. And if the person goes and tries to liquidate all their assets, different countries have different rules as it pertains to fraudulent conveyances than the United States does. So it's not that it doesn't make sense, but the pressure is on those foreign nationalities. You let your citizens mess around with our citizens and you don't help us to try to collect. It's reciprocal, man. You want our help, you got to give us, and we have some leverage. The United States has some leverage sometimes.
Yeah, I would say.
Not with like North Korea, Russia, or China, but outside, or Iran. I think that would be their way. But outside of those countries, there's some leverage.
So, unless you're willing to live in North Korea and work out of North Korea,
well done.
You won't be able to do business out of there anyway. So, okay. So the point that we're reaching, guys, is that a lot of people outside of the U.S. that sell into U.S. because U.S. is still one of the best markets. You're still open to this, and even if I've had, I'll tell you about a friend of mine who distinctly said, "I don't give a crap," and because one of the things I told him is I said, "Okay." And actually, this is a good question. So let's play it out, Greg. Let's say, and I'm going to give this fictitious friend of mine. He's in Australia. I'm going to give him a name. We'll call him Mate for now. Very creative. So let's say Mate is in Australia and screwing around, breaking the rules, okay? And the FTC says, you know what? Screw you guys. And they take some of the money in U.S., but there's not a lot, and they go to the Australian government, and the Australian government's like, yeah, we're going to slow roll this. This isn't top priority. We'll help whenever we feel like it. The guy gets a wind of it. Mate gets a wind of it. Just, gets rid of his assets, gives them to his wife, because kids are suddenly very rich. And now, it finally, when it trickles down to him, he's like, whatever, I'm not responding. I don't care. And the Australian government's not really doing anything. I've heard before that essentially what the FTC or similar organizations can do is also ban them from the country so that they could never travel into the United States, or if they did, they would get arrested or whatever.
Well,
Is that another like worst case scenario too? Is that you'd get completely banned from the country?
I mean, think about this. If you file for bankruptcy and you don't disclose an asset in your bankruptcy, one of the natural things in the United States is they take your passport. Can't travel out of the country. Same thing would apply for a foreigner that wanted to come to the United States. They could block them from being able to come into the country.
Got it. So
They would lose their
So it
passport
can-
rights to come to the United States.
yeah,
And maybe
it could
they
get
don't,
pretty.
maybe they don't care. Maybe they're like, I don't care. I'm going to Greece.
Well, Yeah. In this particular case, mate did say that. He's like, I don't give a crap. But I found out later that, he's getting a little bit more interested now. I think his eyes are opening up a little bit more about, the fact that.
Do I know mate? I might know mate.
I think you know, mate. Yeah.
Okay,
think
I
you
should
do.
talk to mate.
Yeah, I think you know him. So the other thing I would just say, if you're outside the U.S., this is going to be really funny. Forget all the legal mumbo jumbo that we just went over. Guys, it's irritating as shit. It is so horribly irritating. It is such a distraction. It is such a pain. You're going to, if they do freeze assets or do anything in the United States, how are you going to get more merchant processing capabilities? What company in the United States is going to want to work with you? Is going to want you to be their affiliate? Like, it's a pain. It's a pain to get that letter. It's a pain to have them harass you.
Here's what happens next. They're going to be like, okay, I'll go get somebody else to get the merchant account for me. And then all of a sudden it becomes criminal.
Now it's
Because
wire fraud.
now they're using somebody as a front to process payments for their own business. And they're not just dealing with the FTC, they're working with the Department of Justice. And those countries do have extradition for criminal actions, and they will force them to come to the United States to stand trial for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. I could see like Australia taking a criminal action way more seriously to work with the government versus a civil one. And now Greg, you won't believe this. So when my FTC notice came out, or when the press release hit, there was a person of extremely credible value. I don't want to give any more than that, whose suggestion to me was exactly that I would be very hard to process for, and that I needed to get another party's signature and name to get approval. And I distinctly remember speaking with you, because I asked you once, I was like, what the hell's wire fraud? Like, it's a very go-to, by the way, it's like, I find like a lot of cases, that's like a really good loophole that the government uses. Like, it's just like they find a wire fraud and all of a sudden the case just like magnifies times 10 or 20. And I remember you saying, don't ever, ever, ever let someone else sign for something that they're not like instrumentally part of the company. So anyways, that happened, and I was like, okay, not touching this with a 10-foot pole. I was surprised at the advice I got. So I want my message to those who are outside of the country thinking, yes, I agree. The chances of you getting hit or having problems are less. Fine. I get that, right? But it's still going to be very annoying. It's still going to be very distracting. It's still going to cost you a lot of money. It still has a lot of risk layers there. You're better off just doing it right, doing it compliantly. The last piece I also want to say is a lot of you outside of the U.S., especially like in India and other countries that I happen to know about, are consultants or contractors or agencies that are serving clients and doing work for clients who are in the US or Canada. And so you are doing them a great disservice unless you understand the rules and laws and are following them. So just do the right thing by those clients because they're trusting you too. So the point is, look, my message to the market has been the following about this. Whether you live, I'm louder to Americans than I would be outside, but I think internationally too. Whether you're compliant or not, that's a choice. All right. And Greg, you and I have talked about this before. You pull your hair out with clients where you're like, these guys don't listen. It's a choice. Okay. Look, you can either drive the speed limit or you can drive double the speed limit. The thing is, when you drive double the speed limit, you have drastically increased your chances of a wreck, of a car accident, of killing someone, of getting pulled over, of getting tickets, of being put in jail. You get to choose. You know the rules though, right? The speed signs are everywhere. You know that I'm supposed to go this fast. If you choose to go faster than that, that's a choice. That's what my goal with this book when I came to Greg was. I said, I want to make this a choice for all marketers, because for me, there were things that I got hit for. I just did not know. I legitimately had no idea. I had nothing but good intentions. I had the right team, I had the right people, the right processes as per my information. And so I felt like this isn't fair. I didn't know this.
Paralegals,
I had attorneys, I had paralegals, I had layers of crap. Guys, I had more than most, all Greg says is, I had more layers than most of his clients. And I just didn't know what I didn't know. So I wanted to remove that. So internationally, right now, if you're watching this, if you haven't gotten the book, you're choosing to be non-compliant. That's okay. I don't judge that. I'm just saying. But you have an option right now to learn the rules. At least learn them. And if you choose not to follow them, that's your prerogative, right? But learn them so that you can serve your U.S. customers and your U.S. clients the best, because they are heavy under fire. We've been talking about a lot of things on this episode. Personally, maybe it's just my RAS, my reticular activating system, that's more tuned into the FTC now. Yeah, sorry, I just went a little neurological brain sciencey on you guys. But I feel like, Greg, man, the FTC in today's age is just active. They are hyperactive. In the words of Les Brown, they're hungry. Like, they are just... They're moving, guys, and I don't judge anything about that. Good for them. I mean, they're doing their job. They're doing as they see fit for their job. But know the rules, man. So whether you live in the country or not, know the rules. Watch this podcast. Grab a copy of the book. Now, for those of you who are international, we added a digital version of the book, so you're not paying ridiculous. It's literally dollars to get access to this knowledge now. So we really, really, really implore and invite you, and not just the book, but tune into this episode and change your marketing and practices. I will say this, as someone who is now launching multiple compliant funnels, it's just a new muscle, guys. You got to learn to, and I feel really good about the products and on the marketing messaging I'm launching, and they're converting really well. Actually, if I'm being honest, Greg laughs at this. I've told him twice, I'm converting better in some of our cases than I used to, and having no refund issues on the back end, because it's moral and ethical marketing. So anyway, that's my monologue. We're going to wrap it up there. If you are outside of the U.S., the answer, as Greg initially put it for us, was yes. The rules still apply. The only way to avoid it is what we said. You could be outside the U.S., non-citizen, non-this, and never sell to an American. Fine, then go off and do whatever the hell you want. But I have one final question. Greg, what about an American citizen throwing shade, but not to American clients? So an American citizen selling a bunch of stuff, but never sells to an American customer. Does the FTC have authority over them?
They do. So Section 5 of the FTC Act gives it two ways. So there's two ways they have jurisdiction. It's either if a company outside the country is advertising to U.S. clients, or a U.S. client is soliciting to out of country. So I'm in year 5 of litigation in the state of Utah. Company is based in Utah, 0 Utah customers. But that lawsuit, it's 5 years in, because they say the jurisdiction over the company because they're located here. The individuals are located here. And that's the way the FTC feels as well. Same thing. If you had a US-based company that was advertising, you see it all the time, actually. Facebook, they're in a big FTC suit. Most of their clientele isn't in the country at all. I mean, although they do have a significant clientele here as well. Yeah. So, it doesn't matter. If you're here in the United States, they have jurisdiction over you.
There you go. The man himself has spoken. Let it be known. Get the book. Don'tSayThat.com/go. Get a digital copy. It's a few bucks. You'll thank us later. Keep watching the podcast. We love you guys. What do I always say? What are a few of the messages we've got lately? We're saying join the compliance revolution. The revolution of ethical and moral marketing. I also like to say, if you want to be a giant, you got to go compliant. And last but not least, if life pushes you, stand straight, smile, and push it the heck back. Greg, as always, thank you for embarking. Thank you for imparting your brilliant knowledge upon us. I mean, guys, if you go back and look at these episodes, I'm not making this up. I know I'm not allowed to add value to these things per Greg's rules, but Greg's hourly rate is a public rate, so we can substantiate the fact that there is literally thousands of dollars worth of knowledge that you're getting on this podcast, that if you hired Greg personally, he would charge you a lot of money. So you can thank me for that. I convinced Greg to give his stuff away for free here. But we love you guys. Stay safe, stay compliant. Let us know if we can help you, and keep tuning in and grab a copy of the book. Greg, thank you. To the rest of you, see you guys later.